am 73 years old, and if you sit down with me for 5 minutes, I know exactly what you're going to ask. You might try to be polite about it, you might dance around the subject, but eventually the question always comes out. Aren't you lonely? Don't you want someone to take care of you? What about companionship? Society looks at a woman my age living alone, and they see a tragedy. They see a problem that needs to be fixed. They see a half-life. So I listen to them. At 70 years old, I did exactly what everyone told me to do. I got a boyfriend. Everyone clapped. Everyone said, "How wonderful, you deserve love. It is never too late." But here is the dark truth that nobody tells you. Here is the secret that we are too polite to whisper at dinner parties. I was lonelier with him sitting right next to me than I ever was when I was alone. If you are watching this and you are afraid of aging alone, or if you are in a relationship just because you are scared of the silence, you need to listen to this. I am going to tell you the story of how I lost myself trying to find companionship, and how I found the most valuable thing in the world only after I walked away. The trap. How it started. Let me take you back to the beginning. The trap didn't look like a trap, it looked like concern. My husband passed when I was 68. It was cancer, fast, brutal, 6 months from the diagnosis to the funeral. Those first 2 years, I won't lie to you, they were hell. The house felt cavernous. The silence wasn't peaceful, it was heavy. It pressed down on my chest. Sundays were the worst. We used to make breakfast, read the paper, share the silence. Without him, Sunday felt like a punishment for being alive. But humans are adaptable creatures. Slowly, painfully, I found a rhythm. I joined a woodworking class. I started having coffee with the ladies from church. I taught myself to cook real meals for one, not just scrambled eggs over the sink. I built a routine. It wasn't the life I had planned, but it was mine. Then came the pressure. It started with my daughter. We were having dinner, and she looked at me with those pitying eyes. "Mom, you need to meet someone." "I'm fine," I said. "You're not fine," she pushed back. "You're alone all the time. Alone isn't the same as healthy." Then my friends joined in. Susan at church pulled me aside and whispered, "You are too young to give up. You still have life in you." And honestly, I was vulnerable. I started believing them. I started thinking, maybe there is something wrong with me. Maybe I am taking the easy way out. Maybe I'm just a coward hiding in my house. So I did it. I joined a dating site. It took me 3 days of frustration just to upload a photo. Another week to write a profile that didn't sound desperate. And when the messages started pinging, I felt a hit of dopamine I hadn't felt in years. Wanted. That is a dangerous drug when you haven't tasted it in a while. That is how I met Larry. 68, widower, nice smile, gentle eyes. We talked on the phone for hours. He laughed at my jokes. He asked about my woodworking. He seemed fascinating. When we met for coffee, I drove home thinking, maybe they were right. Maybe this is the missing piece. The honeymoon, fade, and the suffocation. The first few months were textbook, dinner twice a week, matinee movies because we both hate crowds, walks in the park. It felt normal. It felt like I was back in the club of people who matter. But then the cage started to close. It wasn't a slam. It was a slow, creeping constriction. It started with the phone. He would call in the morning. Just checking in. Then at lunch. Then before bed. At first, I thought, this is sweet. This is what couples do. They stay connected. But after a few weeks, the tone shifted. If I didn't answer within 3 rings, he'd call again. Then a text. "Where are you?" I was worried. "Why didn't you pick up?" One Tuesday, I was having coffee with my woodworking group. My phone buzzed. Larry. I ignored it. I was busy. I was living my life. It buzzed again and again. When I finally called him back an hour later, he wasn't worried. He was hurt. I didn't know where you were. I felt ignored. I felt a heavy stone drop in my stomach. Guilt. I felt like a teenager being scolded by a parent. I had to explain myself. I had to justify spending 1 hour with my friends. Suddenly, my time wasn't my own anymore. It was shared property. Then came the weekends. Every Saturday, he wanted to do something. Visit his daughter, go to the mall, try the new Italian place. And if I said, Larry, I just want a quiet weekend at home to read, he would give me the look, the kicked puppy look. Don't you want to see me? I thought we were together. So I started saying yes. I said yes when my body wanted to say no. I said yes when my mind was screaming for silence. Because what kind of ungrateful woman finds love at 70 and then asks for space? I felt selfish. I felt broken. The hidden costs: energy, money, and identity. Here is something nobody talks about regarding dating in your senior years. The math. The emotional and financial math of companionship. At 73, I live on Social Security and a small pension. I am comfortable, but I have to be careful. I have a budget. With Larry, my budget exploded. Dinners out were $50 a pop. Gas driving across town. Birthday gifts for him, his daughter, his grandkids I barely knew. Then he suggested a trip to the coast. It'll be romantic, he said. $200 for the hotel, gas, meals. I lay awake at night staring at the ceiling, calculating the cost, watching my savings, my safety net, shrink. But I couldn't say anything. I didn't want to look cheap. I didn't want to look poor. But the financial cost was nothing compared to the energy cost. At 73, I have a limited battery. I wake up at 6 a.m., I have my coffee, I work in the garden. By 3 p.m., I need to rest. My body demands it. It is not a negotiation. Larry didn't understand this. He wanted to go out at 6 p.m., stay out until 9 or 10. I would get home completely wiped out. My back would ache for 2 days. My sleep cycle was destroyed. I tried to explain. Larry, I'm not as young as I used to be. I need downtime. He would scoff. My friend's wife is 80 and she goes line dancing. He made me feel lazy. He made me feel like I wasn't trying hard enough to be young. I was performing. I was acting the role of the energetic girlfriend, and it was killing me. The breaking point. The invasion. About 8 months in, the dynamic shifted from annoying to terrifying. He started talking about the future. He'd say things like, "Your house is so much bigger than my apartment." We spend all our time together anyway. Think of how much money we'd save on utilities. One night, over a pasta dinner I barely touched, he said it. "I think we should live together." I froze. My fork stopped halfway to my mouth. Live together? He was smiling. Why not? We aren't kids. We don't need to date for years. Let's combine our lives. I drove home that night in a cold sweat. I sat in my living room. My living room. The house my husband and I bought 40 years ago. The house where I raised my babies. The house where every scratch on the floorboards holds a memory. I looked around at my sanctuary, and I imagined him in it. I imagined his toothbrush on my sink. I imagined his TV shows blaring in the evening, drowning out my quiet reading time. I imagined his schedule dictating when I ate, when I slept, when I woke up. I imagined having to explain where I was going every time I grabbed my car keys. I didn't feel excitement. I didn't feel love. I felt panic. Visceral, heart-pounding panic. I realized that if he moved in, my life would end. The woman I had fought so hard to become after my husband died, she would vanish. I would just be Larry's girlfriend. I would be a caretaker again, a companion again, an audience member for his life. the breakup, and the truth. I broke up with him the following week. I had rehearsed a speech. I wanted to be gentle. I wanted to be kind. But when we sat down, it all fell out of me in a rush. "I can't do this anymore." He was shocked. "What, this? Us?" "I can't," I said. "I just can't." He cried. He asked what he did wrong. He told me he thought we had something real. The guilt was crushing. It felt like I was kicking a puppy. But I looked him in the eye and told him the truth. I am not ready to share my life. I thought I was. Everyone told me I should be. But I like my life the way it is, without you. He got angry then. He told me I wasted his time. He told me I led him on. Maybe he was right. I don't know. But I walked out of his apartment, got into my car, and drove home. For the first few weeks, I felt terrible. The withdrawal was real. My phone was silent. No one was checking on me. My daughter was disappointed. "Mom, he was so nice. You're going to regret this." My friends looked at me like I had lost my mind. Susan said, "You're going to die alone if you're this picky." But then, the fog lifted. I woke up one Tuesday morning. The sun was streaming through the window. My first thought wasn't, "I need to call Larry." My first thought was, "What do I want to do today?" The silence in the house wasn't heavy anymore. It was luxurious. I made my coffee exactly how I like it, strong, with just a little cream. I sat in my chair for 2 hours and read a book. No one interrupted me. No one asked me where the butter was. No one needed my attention. I went fishing with Jane. We sat by the water for 3 hours and barely said a word. It was heaven. Larry would have talked the whole time. And I realized the biggest lie I had ever been told. People kept asking me, "Aren't you lonely now?" No. I was peaceful. For the first time in a year, I could breathe. Loneliness versus solitude, the lesson. Here is what I learned, and I need you to understand this distinction. There is a difference between being alone and being lonely. With Larry, I was never alone. He was always there, texting, calling, sitting next to me. But I was incredibly lonely. Why? Because I couldn't be myself. I was masking, I was adjusting, I was shrinking myself to fit into the space he allowed me. That is the worst kind of loneliness in the world. The loneliness of being with someone who doesn't see you, someone who just uses you to fill the silence in their own life. It has been 3 years since Larry. I haven't dated, I won't date. People still ask, maybe you just need someone more independent. Maybe you need a different type of man. No, I finally understand why I got a boyfriend. I didn't get a boyfriend because I was lonely. I got a boyfriend because I was afraid. I was afraid of what people would think. I was afraid of being the sad widow. I was afraid that my value as a woman had expired because I wasn't attached to a man. That fear drove me into a relationship that drained my soul. Now, I look at my life and I see abundance. I wake up when I want. I eat what I want. I spend my money on my garden and my grandkids. I don't have to manage anyone else's emotions. I don't have to be anyone's emotional support animal. I don't have to explain myself. My daughter finally stopped pushing last month. She came over, saw me working in the garage, covered in sawdust, humming a song. She said, "Mom, you seem lighter." "I am," I told her. "I am free." The call to action. Listen to me closely. I am not saying relationships are bad. I am not saying love is impossible at 70. If you meet someone who adds value to your life, who respects your solitude, who brings you peace, grab onto that. That is rare. But if you are 60, 70, 80, and you are looking for a partner just because you are terrified of the silence, stop. Ask yourself what you are really afraid of. Are you afraid of loneliness? Or are you afraid of yourself? I have a friend, Martha. She is 81. She has been with a man for 5 years who criticizes her cooking and complains about her driving. She told me, I can't remember the last time I had a happy day, but what am I going to do? Start over at 81. That isn't love. That is a hostage situation. That is fear. At this age, peace is not a luxury. Peace is survival. My blood pressure goes up when I am stressed. My body cannot handle the cortisol of a bad relationship. I choose peace, and I am done apologizing for it. Every morning I wake up grateful. Grateful that my bed is mine, grateful that my time is mine, grateful that I am enough. At 73, I finally learned the lesson I should have learned at 23. Your own company is enough. You do not need a witness to your life to make it valid. You do not need a partner to prove you exist. Once you fall in love with your own peace, you will realize it is the most expensive thing you own. And you will stop letting people buy it with cheap change. So no, I don't have a boyfriend. I have a life. And for the first time in a long time, it belongs entirely to me. If this story resonated with you, if you are tired of the pressure, if you are scared to be alone, do me a favor. Hit that like button. Subscribe to this channel because I have a lot more truth to share and I'm not holding back anymore. And share this with a woman who needs to hear it. Share it with someone who is settling because they are scared. And tell me in the comments, are you alone and happy? Or are you in a relationship and lonely? Let's tell the truth for once. The clock is ticking for all of us. Don't waste another second living someone else's life.